Hello, everybody, and welcome to Max Spoilers for The Suicide Squad from MinMax, for a Patreon about games, friends, and getting better. I am Ben Hansen, joined by my own little squad here. Sergio Vasquez.
Hi.
And Brian Vore. Welcome, sir.
Hello. Good to be here.
Yeah, Ross, the Star Wars Guy Fund, is on assignment, on vacation or something. Where is he at again, Brian?
He's, I don't know if I want to give his coordinates, but I do know that his current Miss Pac-Man score is in the 190s. He's got an arcade he plays at every time he goes on this vacation, and he's trying to beat someone who's over 200 who left a big score.
Oh, God, that sounds brutal. But we're not here to talk about Miss Pac-Man. We're here to talk about The Suicide Squad, the new DC movie that's out in theaters and on HBO Max, all that fun stuff. You, by the way, watching this on YouTube, thank you. I'm glad you found us. You can unlock the podcast version of this discussion, all of our other Max spoilers. You can unlock commentary tracks for Lord of the Rings, the Star Wars sequels, all of our interviews, and you can compete in Trivia Tower, our video game trivia show, which, by the way, is happening on Monday, August 16th at 7 p.m. You support us at any tier. You can compete in Trivia Tower and win some great game codes and an Astro 40 headset just by knowing a thing or two about video games. You can get all of this by going to patreon.com/minmax with 2 N's. So thanks for your support. We appreciate it. Now, on with this show. All right, The Suicide Squad. I don't know, Serial, you seem like the biggest surprise for being in this movie in a big way. So I'm just curious, like, what was your road up to actually watching this movie? Where was your hype level at? Your love of the Suicide Squad franchise, all that fun stuff?
You know, my path really began Thursday night when I realized, it's out. And I was looking on HBO Max for stuff, and I was just like, I'm sitting down and watching movies. Like, I guess this new Suicide Squad movie is out. And I ended up watching it and was surprised by how much I liked it. We can talk about like specifics there, but then I was like, okay, well, now that I know that I'm going to do this, I'll go watch the other 2 related movies, Harley trilogy. I went and watched Suicide Squad and did not care for that. And then I watched Birds of Prey, which I actually watched before the pandemic. But I remember liking that movie, not loving it, but I'm kind of in that same space. So I was pleasantly surprised by this one being as good as it was. Yeah, I'm tracking with you on all 3 of those films. Yeah, Brian, were you champing at the bit for the Suicide Squad to finally come out?
I was excited for it. I really like James Gunn stuff in the Guardians of the Galaxy series. And I obviously a big John Cena fan from my kind of wrestling fandom. Of course. So it's always good to see him in stuff. It feels like he always does a great job. So I just kind of noticed it was coming out, and the average couple thing at the end of the day where it's like, hey, what do you want to watch? And Colleen made the mistake of saying, whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm just firing this up now.
And you said, welcome to anything.
Yeah. I feel like my batting average for like stuff I know she'll actually like is pretty good. Okay. So I built up some capital to spend on this one, but it was not a big success in her eyes. I enjoyed a lot of parts of it, but I don't think she was very excited about a lot of the gore.
Yeah.
And violence.
There is a shocking amount of violence. Every once in a while you think you're numb to it. Like, I don't really like a lot of gore violence in my movies, but still, I've just kind of got numb, I guess, when I'm watching a movie like this. But there's still a couple moments in this movie where it's like, Jesus Christ, this is so much. Like, I think maybe number 1 was when, jumping right to spoilers, everybody. This is Max spoilers, so get ready for it. But the Rick Steig death scene, where it was just like this Mortal Kombat X fatality of actually seeing, wait, is it Rick Flag? Rick Steig.
Rick Flag.
Rick Flag. Please forgive me, Suicide Squad fans. But yeah, that scene where you get to see his heart actually getting stabbed. Yeah. It's like the most intimate death in this otherwise funny, all over the place, wacky movie. They just have this one death scene that's like something from Saving Private Ryan, just with like the intimate death. Yeah. It's so absurd.
The Mortal Kombat X-ray death.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like the stab to the heart wasn't bad enough. It's like, now we got to look. Like that second level was definitely when Colleen was like, another point where she's just like, come on! Lots of eye covering in this.
Yeah. I enjoyed the movie a fair amount. I watched it with friends of the show, Grant and Amy, from Mint Snacks fame, Suriel, the ones that fed you random
Producer
food.
Amy.
Producer Amy, yeah. And they were really, I think they were really bought and sold by the end. Like, it is a testament to this movie that it's so absurd, but like, oh, everybody in that room was really caring about this squad of characters by the end, which is a real testament, I think, to the filmmaking in general. And then you start to think about, the characters that people really care about, that really pop, feels like they're playing, and James Gunn and DC are playing the smart card of making people really care about animals. Because like that rat people cared about, the weasel got a big reaction, and like King Shark, like those three, it's just like an audience will react to these three no matter what.
And I think my high level takeaway is that I know the violence isn't going to work for a lot of people, and it's not necessarily that I enjoyed like how violent it was. I'm not like in a position where I'm like, oh, that guy's head got cut off, that's awesome.
Right.
But I like it insofar as that it feels like it's kind of lingering on the consequences of its premise a little bit more than other movies. And I think that to me is sort of part of my like larger takeaway is that it feels like the tone that Gunn is going for here feels like it fits this premise better than even something like Guardians of the Galaxy, where it's this very like sometimes juvenile, very cynical like take on the idea of even the premise of the movie of like, oh, we're a collection of heroes or bad guys, and we're on this kind of, we're on this suicide mission, and like, half the cast is kind of very dissociating from the thing of like, I don't care, I'm just self-interested. But the combination of the R rating and the situation that Gunn sets up here feels like it is like, this is how it would actually go in some cases, in that like it would be very violent, a lot of people would die, and like the kind of very like compare it to Marvel, where it's like, oh, like, violent things happen, but let's kind of not show the consequences of of that violence. Whereas this feels like it is like saying like, this is what you're dealing with when you think about a group of mercenaries or superheroes going into like a populated area.
But still setting the tone so early on that this violence is largely going to be funny. I feel like they're playing that opening scene as almost for laughs of just how absurdly brutal it is, which, hats off to him for 1,000 different reasons, I think, for the film here and the fact that the team pulled it off. But that idea of, from all the trailers and the premise, you're just wondering, how can they possibly handle this many characters? This is just an absurd amount of superhero characters to throw into a movie. And the answer is, before the title screen even comes up, 70% of them have died, which is such an amazing move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was telling to be like, wait a second, I didn't know, this guy, I didn't know Pete Davidson was in the movie.
Right.
With these other characters. I'm like, oh, wait, that's probably a bad sign for them.
Like, faces exploding immediately.
I had to look up some of the cast, and the fact that like Nathan Fillion is in it. He's TDK. Right. That was like a weird thing of just like, I would love to see what those conversations were like with those actors of like, you're in it for about 2 minutes, but like that's kind of the point, right?
Take it or leave it.
Yeah, I like that this more than the other Suicide Squad movie leans into the idea of like, a lot of these people end up dying because that's the whole point of this group, is that they're all suicide missions where we don't care about you and you're expendable, and like the American government is taking bets on who is going to live or die on this mission, very cynically.
Yeah, and like especially that the Javelin.
There's so many characters that are like D level. I'm assuming these are all real DC characters from the comics. Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of like super hardcore fans that love, just even if they die right away, to see some of these people on the big screen, like that they never thought they would see.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the Javelin character is the one that I can't get my mind around, just because I listened to that, Conan podcast interview with Flula Borg, the actor, and he was talking about like getting in shape and doing these crazy workouts because he was going to be in the new Suicide Squad movie. And then it's thought of like, what is that? He was in it for 3 minutes. You needed to train that much just for that one scene? You could have just put some prop muscles in your stupid big suit and called it a day. But I guess if you're in a superhero movie, you're in a superhero movie, so go for it.
I mean,
I thought those were fake ads on his thing anyway.
I think it largely were. Yeah, it's such a weird move.
I feel like Gunn sets that up really well by introducing you to Savant, and focusing on him as the first thing you see is him, is his introductory thing, and he's used as the guy to like, yeah, we have this team. Don't like. Here's the premise of a Suicide Squad. We're not going to linger too much on the actual thing, and we already like. It's kind of nodding to the fans of like, you know how this thing works, so we're gonna kind of cut to the chase. And then he ends up dying really quickly, like in a non-ceremonial way. He just ends up being like, I don't like this at all, and then like leaving and then exploding, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's a good way to set up the rules of, the head explosion thing. It's like, it's not a fake thing they used to keep people in line. It really does take people out, and you can't come back from it.
Yeah. It's like starting Game of Thrones with the Red Wedding of like, no, yeah, anyone can die here. Like here are the stakes of this mission.
Which I loved. I love that idea of a superhero movie going in, and it really feels like I think they could kill almost anybody here. And I was really excited then by the opening of, again, reinforcing that idea of anybody can die. And this is just because I have a sick, dark mind, but I was then kind of bummed out that there weren't more deaths in the middle. Like they eventually got there a little bit, kind of, but I wanted them to continually be picked off just so that tension was real about like, okay, I really don't know what's going to happen to this character or this character. But like after that first wave, I feel like by and large, everybody was safe except for Rick Flag, nearing the end there.
Yeah. And I think that premise also neatly ties into how much this movie is kind of playing around with whether it's a sequel or a reboot of Suicide Squad, where it literally lets the movie pick and choose which characters it likes from the old movie. So it's like, okay, we like Rick Flag because he's kind of like a good kind of center for these guys. We're going to basically redo Deadshot as Bloodsport.
Right.
And give him basically the exact same premise of like, we're basically holding your daughter hostage.
Yeah.
And then like, yeah, we got to have Harley. Which I don't think this movie pulls off super well, but we'll get into that. But like, we have to have Harley, so it's like we're gonna pick and choose these characters. But Captain Boomerang's done. We don't care about him. Like, just I'm gonna use this as a way to clean house on the characters that I don't like, and basically pick the characters that I do.
Yeah, it's such a weird spot for James Gunn to be in, of presumably getting to pick whatever he wanted to do for DC, and it's like, okay, I want to do Suicide Squad, but not really connected to the old movie. And like that Bloodsport thing, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around, because there were reports early on that Will Smith was coming back for it, I thought. But it seems like, based on this interview, and I forget who it was, but somebody associated with the movie said that they were talking about him, that it was a real possibility of him coming back. But then production-wise, it didn't quite line up. And so they decided to pivot and have Idris Elba jump in there as Bloodsport instead, for basically the same type of character here, dealing with his daughter and all that stuff.
And then they even needle the idea of like how many of these characters are just like, this guy's really good with guns, when they introduce Peacemaker, of like they give him the exact same origin story and they even touch on it. But yeah, I think
it's like anything in his hands becomes the deadly weapon, and it's
it's very funny. Yeah,
he just been done explaining like everyone's got a super unique set of skills.
Yeah, I thought that was a great fit, just to repeat the thing exactly.
But I do also like that they do go for more obscure characters, because it does emphasize the idea of like, no one cares about Ratcatcher 2 or
right.
Like I know the people like kind of comic hipsters will be like, no, Polka-Dot Man is really cool, and he had this one comic where he was really like, he was amazing, but like people don't know these characters, so it's like, it's not like Captain America is here and like, well, this person can't die because they're like the main character, right? Like the actors are maybe the biggest signifier of who you expect to make it to the end.
It'd be really confusing if they killed Harley. Even though Birds of Prey was not a huge success, it seems like DC would want to keep that open in the future, just because it's so great, and in theory could be really profitable in a big way again someday.
Yeah. I feel like regardless of the movies themselves, I think Harley as a character has been doing numbers for them.
Right.
Yeah, she's definitely kind of got a cloak of invincibility on it when it comes to the movies like this. Not only do you have a established name that's got a big fandom, but it's like cool to have like a woman that can be a keel or a face, and used in many different roles. And she's got kind of like some emancipation from Joker,
I think she's most interesting when she's not the sidekick.
Oh yeah. Big time. Yeah.
But this movie definitely feels like she's in a very separate movie. Like she's in her own movie for most of it, where it's like she's in the initial squad. She's the one surviving member, and then she gets captured. So she kind of spends the most of the movie separated from the rest of the squad, and then eventually kind of meets up with them for the finale.
Yeah, it is interesting. I like that angle of the guy being so into Harley, because it's like, oh, you symbolize anti-American fervor. You're very popular here. You're great. It's like, oh, that's kind of like a cool, weird, different use for Harley as a character. And then I just think about tipping the cap again to Margot Robbie, like maintaining this character across so many different writers and directors and really basically tones of movies. Like she has such a tough job just to like try and maintain, all right, I'm trying just to be Harley, even though there's all these different visions of what Harley in this universe should be and the surrounding environment of each film.
Yeah, I think she gives a pretty strong performance here. It was definitely interesting watching this movie and then watching Suicide Squad because in Suicide Squad, she is still figuring out the accent a lot of the time, and like what like how she's gonna enunciate certain words. And here it definitely feels like she has that way more on lock. There's specifically a part where they're like, "Oh, American women love accents," and then she's like, "You're right, because we don't got none." And she's like very clearly doing it with the accent.
Right.
But yeah, I think the writing kind of isn't as strong here for her as it was even in Birds of Prey, which is obvious. Like I feel like she is like an ancillary kind of joke character where they have that scene where they're kind of pacing back and forth and she's like, I'm also here too, and that like feels like very much like, okay, we have to have Harley in this movie, you have to write some jokes for her, but it feels like she's just doing like a series of she's just like, kind of like being Harley. She doesn't have like a arc here. Like there's really no strong characterization of her other than like, yeah, she's Harley, she's doing her thing.
Right.
I feel like Harley has two major beats. One was very surprising with like assassinating the kind of dictator guy.
Right.
And the other one is like the moment you see that pointy javelin, you're like, okay, that's gonna be the big stab of something at the end. You see the star's eye and you're like, well, okay, that's where it's going. But I thought it was fun. It's like, and when she shoots him, I was like, where'd she even get that gun? How did she like know it was loaded? Because it looked like an antique prize thing. And she's like, this even had, I'm surprised this had a bullet in it. Like she wasn't even planning. Like if it went wrong, she was like, well, I'll just roll with it if I don't actually kill him.
And she had the hot video game reference when she called the people that lived in the island, Mario Kart Racing, I think is what she called them, and tried to come up with the name. It's like, okay, got that hip reference in there.
Yeah. She's
cool. The cast of characters, I love that all of those guys died so early on in the movie, and it feels like Polka-Dot Man should have been in that batch. But I love the idea of like, okay, like the real freaks, they're all going down immediately, but just what if we kept one freak throughout the entire movie? And I mean like obscure freak, and that's like Polka-Dot Man going throughout this entire film, because there was a lot more of that guy in this movie than I ever could have imagined.
Yeah, and
I loved seeing him around. Like, I think maybe the mom stuff was some of my favorite stuff because it's so quick and flies right by. But like they had to put so much effort to get the gag in all those different like. Okay, we have to size different costumes for this lady and shoot her doing like all kinds of crazy activities and stuff. Like, really committed to that joke.
Oh yeah, that's one of my other things that I do like is that there are a bunch of one-off jokes that like are just kind of throwaway, but I like that there are certain jokes like the early on where Bloodsport is like, you're sending my 14-year-old daughter to juvie, and Viola Davis, who's like one of the better parts of this movie, it's just like she's 16, so like father of the year to you, but then she then immediately transitions to like, and that means we can try her as an adult. So it's like they'll always have these one-off jokes, but they tend to build on them really quickly. And so like they also have the smaller bullets thing where they're kind of where Bloodsport and Peacekeeper are kind of like basically having their pissing contest, and he's like, I'm more accurate because I would use smaller bullets, and then that ends up becoming almost like an Edgar Wright-esque, like we're gonna call back to it at the end of the movie kind of thing. So it's very smart about how it utilizes jokes.
Yeah. Does anybody have a favorite joke throughout the entire film?
I think mine was definitely the overhead projector.
Just that one quick thing.
One of the more throwaway.
Okay.
One of the more throwaway jokes.
Sure. Right.
But it's just like the second I saw it, I was like, why? I did also have that thought of like, why is that there?
So they can make the joke, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian, what do you got?
The first one that popped to mind after the moms was when they use that whole like village raid to kind of show off all their skills, and, like, how awesome they are, and like the first time really working together, and it just ends up being this is the resistance that you just killed. Like all these ladies dudes you just took down.
Yeah, that was good. This joke killed me, but the joke with Milton towards the end, because it was like the perfect setup of like, he was always off to the side, like in the big hero shot when they're playing the Pixies song and they're walking in. It was always just like, yeah, is that Van guy Milton still with them? And then when he goes down and nobody knew that he was with them the entire time, and Harley being like, I think I would have remembered a guy named Milton. That annihilated me. I thought that was the silliest, funniest part of the entire movie. And then the callback later on, all that stuff. But that was just such a fun idea of, oh, he's always kind of there. And if you noticed it, then yeah, congratulations to you.
Yeah. A lot of the jokes also do play into the overall theme of the movie, which is like, you know, the premise is that everyone is self-interested, right? Like all the heroes are basically there to have time off of their sentences, or like to, you know, Bloodsport is to basically rescue his daughter.
Yeah.
Like the U.S. government is like, by the end you realize like they're really only interfering with, they only really want to stop Project Jotunheim because they have to protect their own interests there, and for their plot of the fact that they were the people responsible for all the Project Starfish experiments to be revealed. Like they're just there for their own self-interest, right? And then at the end they make the shift of like going from being self-interested to actually helping the Cartel Maltesians at the risk of their own lives, right? And you know how the government people on the other side say like, yeah, we'll help you out by like knocking out Viola Davis's character and then actually supporting you on that mission.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting take in the movie. Not that, you know, it's a superhero movie, it doesn't have to push boundaries, but it's like, oh, it's interesting to have as much like, oh, let's show you the real America here, let's show them how they're really influencing these Central and South American countries. Like, okay, there's a little something there, a little edge to this overall story.
Yeah, more so than I thought there would be, but there is a lot of like, okay, we're gonna flatten the kind of like socio-political conflict of, you know, America in the Caribbean and Latin America by saying like, okay, this guy who looks a lot like Castro and has played people like Castro analogs before, we're gonna have him be a dictator. We're like bottom line, this guy is an evil military dictator who overthrew a government. So we're gonna kind of like tiptoe around the fact that is more complicated than they make it seem. But it's like, you know, like here's the backdrop of, you know, this dictator abusing these people, and like they're also as expendable of like, you know, the whole point of that, the starfish, is that he just turns people into fodder, right? Of like making the starfish latch onto you and you're basically done. And so like that gives them an excuse to kill a bunch of civilians effectively, but also they're like, okay, you know, there's a metaphor in how a sea of rats of like people who aren't appreciated end up being the thing that kills the monster, right?
Right. Yeah, there every once in a while just that flash of, oh, this movie, I don't know. The tone is sometimes all over the place. Like the one that really struck me is with The Thinker, which, boy, unbelievable just design for that character there. But when The Thinker had that quick line about like him having his way with the Starro infected people, right? And he just like, it's like this jokey moment where he's like, oh, can you blame me? It's like, okay, we're just moving on real quickly for that. Like, am I supposed to be really caring about what's going on here and think that you're evil, or you just want the joke about him abusing all these people, moving on? Every once in a while, this movie struggles with like that. Okay, sure. All right, moving on. We're going so fast. No time to really overthink it.
Yeah. It's hard to be shocked. It's like you want to be shocking at a lot of times in this movie because of the tone, but it's like what's shocking in 2021 versus when the first one came out, and
I think just James Gunn is so fun. He feels so much at times like just a 13-year-old going wild. And I think that has a lot of pros and cons. It's like, okay, the energy, the absurdity, there's a lot here that super works. And at times every once in a while there's a line that's just like, that's just stupid, man. Like,
oh, the rain is like angels splooging. And
yes,
like,
it's exactly that type of stuff. It's like
this, like the humor I think works like maybe 70 to 80% of the time, but there is that 20% where you're just like, all right, whatever. Like I'm willing, like it's not enough to ruin the movie, but it's like you put up with those kind of like really flat jokes to experience the rest of it, which I think mostly works a lot of the time. Like the overhead projector joke is very good, but then you also have to put up with the angel one. Right.
And the one that got me, maybe you guys think it's funny, so maybe I'm going down a limb here, but like the extended bag of dicks sequence in the jungle was one of those where it's like, so I'm still, my mind is reeling about that idea that people are still going for the bag of dicks jokes. Was like, hey, Louis C.K., he was canceled pretty hard a couple of years ago. Like he wrung all the comedy potential out of that back in 2014 or 2007, whenever the hell that was. And the idea that like even in Cyberpunk, there was like a bag of dicks joke, like somehow that has like lived on as this thing. And I understand that Louis C.K. wasn't the first person to use that. Like it was scattered before that, but like the first, I think, person to really put it in a wider lexicon. And I was just like, you don't just get to like repeat this Louis C.K. bit as they're walking through the jungle and make it this funny sequence, man.
Yeah, I mean, it does a decent job of like saying of characterizing Peacemaker as like this very like straight laced, but also, you know, sociopathic kind of like, I am here to do the thing that I was asked to do. I am like a patriot and I will do as America wants me to do. Like, and that he ends up being basically the villain of the movie by the end of it. Right.
Right.
But yeah, it's like, you don't have like, I feel like there is often like this very scriptwriter kind of thing of just like, let's kind of, you know, here's my darling of like, here, I'm going to linger on this joke that I've heard before. And it's like, if I like, it felt like he was listening to a comedy bit and it's like, here's how I would do that bit. And then like they decided to kind of linger on it enough to where it becomes a whole bit in the movie. And I don't think it works as like, okay, like this is as original as you maybe think it is.
Right. But at the same time, it's like you can get bogged down in getting, you know, nitpicky about all this stuff. But like big picture, it is so amazing and absurd that you can have Starro as the kind of, I mean, you want to call it the big villain, I suppose. John Cena, certainly, Peacemaker and stuff. But like just for that entire ending sequence, like this is so amazing that we get to see this in a movie. Like the visuals of poking through a giant starfish's eye, swimming around in its eyeball as rats crawl up a gigantic starfish, then crawl into its eye and swim around. It's like, this is something that we should never have seen in a movie. This is so absurd that they pulled this off and that the movie works. It's not just a stupid joke.
Yeah, even the villain feels like it's like a C or D tier villain, where Starro is like, I mean, it's like it's one thing for them to include Starro as like the villain, but it's another thing like the way it's presented is like it's a very brightly colored, very CGI focused thing where it's like if you look at Suicide Squad even of just like we're gonna take Enchantress and she's gonna be a very serious like solemn villain and we're gonna try to make her cool. And like, this is just like, no, this is the most ridiculous, absurd thing. And it kind of ties into how they're using a lot of the more absurd, like heroes like Polka-Dot Man and Weasel. And like, it's just kind of a movie that is more irreverent about the idea of superheroes and comic books being adapted into film of just like, if like the comparison between actual conflicts in like Latin America and like here's these colorful superheroes feels more heightened here than in other movies where they try to like blend it into one aesthetic.
Yeah. Here's an impossible question for you, Brian. Between Marvel and DC, current continuity, like it's DC, it gets complicated, but who do you think has done a better job of embracing the absurdity and somewhat stupidity of its past in comics? Do you think Marvel or DC of just like going all in, like, yes, this is us and we're proud of it?
I mean, this is one example of DC doing it well, but I feel like Marvel has had so many, like, whoever thought Ant-Man would be a top tier, like, marquee movie, and a lot of other, you know, a lot of other characters, like, it's hard to, I mean, Marvel, like, kills it in, like, almost every category.
Yeah, like you're right. Just because DC has one big
so much content just blasting you, and you know the worst it puts out is maybe, you know, a medium, you know, whereas like the best of the best is like as good as it gets, and like especially now with the TV shows, just how detailed they can get with everything and go like super granular and pull in, you know, all kinds of stuff that it was just maybe not good enough, maybe not high enough for a movie. But it's cool to see. Yeah. But speaking of TV, did you guys hear much about the Peacemaker TV show before you saw the movie?
Yeah, I saw that they were doing it, and then I didn't know if it was going to be a prequel or what, but it seems like now with this setup, yeah, because he's alive at the end, that it's going to be a sequel with Steve Agee, the guy who's working in the lab, and then the other lady's name, I forget her name, right?
Yeah, basically the people who show up at the hospital in the post-credits movie. I also was like, I guess I assumed it was a prequel or something. I didn't really look at too much, but like, what's the story set up? Because, you know, you don't want to like spoil what's going to happen in the movie. So when he got shot in the neck, I was like, oh, I guess it must be a prequel show. And then this thing, it feels very much like, it seems like they got the TV deal and then, okay, we have to erase everything that just happened. But
that could be,
I looked it up and that's exactly what happened.
Oh, really?
He did some kind of, James Gunn did an interview with Collider where it said like, he definitely straight says it got added because of the TV show. I didn't say I was going to do the TV show until after the movie was basically finished being cut. Then I got asked to do the show and I said I would do it. And then we started shooting the TV show. I shot the post-credit scene. So this was shot as part of the TV filming. To be like, okay, we have to make sure he lived through that.
Yeah.
It's a bold move to, throughout the course of this movie, really make you hate Peacemaker. And then it's like, but please get excited for a standalone show. It's like, no, forget that guy. He sucks.
Yeah. I think the way that show works best is almost like if the show acknowledges how much Peacemaker sucks. And it's like the supporting cast is basically, well, we have this guy who's willing to do whatever we say. And so we're just going to use him constantly to just do whatever we want. And I think it works best if they have that supporting cast. I would love for Viola Davis to be in that show as well.
I doubt
but
it.
I don't think it's, but it's kind of encouraging that Gunn is doing it. That Gunn is, I think he's writing it and directing some of the episodes, not all of them.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that the superhero stuff means that the words like, oh yeah, John Cena is doing his is like the lead in an HBO show, like that. We can say that now because of how prevalent all this superhero stuff is.
Yeah, nothing's out the window. Yeah, I thought it was telling too that they kept Weasel alive in the post-credits thing. Like, okay, he's probably going to be a part of the show now as well, because just the physicality. Like, I think it's Sean Gunn, right? Like James Gunn's brother, who did the mocap sessions for Rocket, also did Weasel, but like the way that Weasel walks is so disturbing and iconic in its own ways. So I think that'll be a big part of the show. I'd have to imagine is just ramming Weasel together with Peacemaker now. Yeah,
which that was another bit I did appreciate, where I think the riffing worked really well, was in the plane where they're like, is this some kind of dog?
Right. Oh, I forget. It also really made me laugh when he jumps out and they're like, did no one check if Weasel could swim? They just throw him into the ocean and he drowns. It's just absurd. But yeah,
Weasel has a really strange, unique body shape. And as part of the pandemic, I watched a good amount of Gilmore Girls with Colleen, and Sean Gunn is Kirk in that show, one of the kind of the main side characters. And so I didn't really notice him in the Guardians stuff now, but now I can't unsee him.
Oh, funny.
And I was like, that Weasel has to be played by Sean Gunn, right? Because he's got a very unique body shape and way of moving. And she was like, oh my God. And she looked it up and like while we were watching it, it's like, oh, he is.
Like, and he was also Calendar Man, apparently, who is the guy in the prison who like yelled out at, God, was it Bloodsport or Peacemaker in the beginning or whatever? And I just saw some random inmate. And
Polka-Dot Man. He yelled at Polka-Dot Man.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then in the credits, it was listed as Calendar Man. I'm like, what? That was supposed to be Calendar Man yelling at him? Okay. It's absurd.
That's one of the few like side characters that I actually recognized from like the Batman animated series and like the games and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It is weird that you can identify someone by their very idiosyncratic walk of just like, no, I would recognize that gait anywhere.
Yeah, what are you, Solid Snake and Meryl? What do you think about John Cena's performance overall? Brian, is John Cena fan number one?
Oh, I really liked it. I know he's kind of takes it to kind of an evil side towards the end, but he did make sure Sebastian the Rat got a shot.
Okay.
And they all went and partied at the bar together.
That's true. He has his good moments.
He kind of, I think that's the point of his character is to kind of go back and forth between being like kind of good and kind of bad to like really bad, you know. That's kind of his deal. And I also love Cena's commitment to this character outside of the movie, where he's just like always wearing this weird costume everywhere he goes.
Yeah, I saw him go like Jimmy Kimmel Live or whatever, and he just wore that absurd costume there. And like, all right.
Yeah, he wears it on like the red carpet and all that stuff. Another cool thing is he was in town recently for WWE SmackDown, and I went to that, and he like came out 3 times. Like he's apparently missed being in the ring a lot. So that was fun to see. And then I saw later on that there was a advanced screening of the Suicide Squad in Minnesota.
Ooh.
And he kind of did a surprise drive over there after wrestling was over and surprise those people once the credits rolled.
Oh my God. Wearing the costume probably?
He was still wearing the John Cena never give up neon t-shirt and jorts, but
okay, all right.
People were still very excited to see him. So I thought that was a cool little touch.
Yeah, that is nice.
I think he did a pretty good job. I think that's definitely a role that's molded to him, right? I don't necessarily say that it's this proves that John Cena can do really heavy lifting in terms of acting. But I think he does a decent enough job of playing the very straight list. I'm following the letter of the mission and not necessarily the spirit of the mission, right? So I think he does a decent enough job here. Yeah,
and it was supposed to be Batista originally, where it's okay, that makes more sense. I feel like he could have maybe nailed it a little bit more, but yeah, John Cena was good in Bumblebee. He's had his moments of some solid acting there. I like that movie.
He was Fred's dad in the Fred movie.
That's right.
Fred movie?
Yeah, it's some YouTube thing that I saw it on Twitter that apparently John Cena was just his dad in the Fred YouTuber movie.
Oh my God.
He was good in the Amy Schumer movie.
Yeah, Trainwreck.
Trainwreck, yes.
Yeah, for that. It's just one sex scene though, wasn't it? I'm trying to even remember.
Yeah, he was hanging a towel off his wiener.
Oh, that's right. Great performance though. Yeah, he was nominated, I think, for Best Supporting Actor. Which, by the way, I need to go back and freeze frame it. There was just some guy in this movie, you see full penis, right? Did I miss that? When they're running through the camp, he came out of the shed. Or was that's a bold move, DC. Is just full wang.
So
yeah,
I vaguely remember that.
Good for them.
I guess I don't know. Wieners are kind of funny, I guess.
Yeah, if you put them in a bag, especially, I guess.
Well, yeah, it's too much comedy for us to handle.
Also, I think you could kind of see the weasel's dick.
Really?
When he's running around, when he's doing a slow-mo walk, it's kind of just swinging in the.
All right, cool.
Swinging in the breeze.
We have gone a ways now. It is stunning that we really haven't dove into King Shark. It seems like that is maybe. Is it fair to call him the breakout star of this whole thing? He really killed in the room I was in, at least. And the idea of Sylvester Stallone voicing a really stupid shark. It's okay, what a weird career that guy's had. He could tell some stories, man, about the journey through Hollywood, because this is where you end up, is voicing a shark.
Yeah, I thought I did a great job with the shark voice. When you think of, okay, what's a dumb shark? It's the voice is just too perfect.
Right.
It just goes really well. Yeah, and he kind of it's cool how he develops over time, but still loves to eat people whole,
Yes,
that's never going to change.
And I love that fake out where you think that he died falling off the tower and then he gets shot a million times. Oh no, he's basically invincible. And just it was odd, but sure, I was all for it. And I love just the little bit of world building. It's so telling for how important something small can be. In the beginning where they had that line about he's descended from gods or something is the rumor. And it's that makes him so much cooler in my mind that he's some shark god. That's amazing.
Which makes the fact that he's in the Suicide Squad at all kind of weird. Of A, how did they capture him? And B, is the explosive they implanted in the back of his neck actually going to work on him?
Right,
would that actually kill him? But then the conceit is that he's dumb enough to actually go along with it anyway.
Right.
And yeah, I think it's a testament. I think that character is really well written. Stallone does I think he voices him fine, but it's they've really toned down how frequently he speaks and how much killer to filler ratio there is. I like that there's just a joke where they're in that room asking questions and his contribution is just to raise his hand and go hand.
Right.
And that's all you need for that character to work. It's just to interject, and he's so kind of innocently stupid that he's just automatically endearing to everyone, and everyone ends up loving him.
Yeah, which, correct me if I'm wrong, DC fans, but this is the most stupid King Shark has ever been, right? I didn't know that was a defining part of his personality, but I know in the Flash series, Brian, do you know who voices King Shark?
Do not.
David Hayter, Solid Snake himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because I think I don't think it's a consistent characteristic. Because even if you watch the Suicide Squad game trailer, he's a very different character.
Right. Yes.
He's basically the Batista, the I forget. Yeah, the Batista character in Guardians of the Galaxy. He is that guy where he's just I'm not dumb, but it's I'm gonna play it straight, but I am an intelligent human being.
Yeah, that's a good point. I bet this movie and the success of it, amongst people who watched it, I bet that'll be a big takeaway is, okay, now I may be slightly more optimistic about Rocksteady's take instead of our main point of comparison before was, the last David Ayer version of Suicide Squad, which is a rough go at times.
It's interesting, though, because this will have nothing to do with the game, right? As far as creative people behind it. But I guess seeing that it can be done successfully.
Yeah, for sure. And so the headlines are now all spinning out of control about, what a disaster it is. The box office is doomed because this movie made $26 million opening weekend, which is not great. Disney's Jungle Cruise crushed it, but even that did like $35 million. But it's just a sign, I think, of the times we're in for the movie theaters, because I feel like DC and Warner Brothers could have spun this differently if they just released the data on how many people watched it on HBO Max and said, like, what a triumph. Look at this. We had 48 million people watch this opening weekend or something, which, who knows? I'm guessing it's a lot. But instead, this box office number gets out there first, and now it's seen as this colossal failure, even though, God, I wonder, did more people watch this weekend because it's on HBO Max than even the wild success of the last Suicide Squad in theaters? Probably.
Yeah. I think that says more about, like, this feels like maybe not to bring it back to video games, but like the MPD circa like 2010, where it was very clear that digital sales were taking up a larger and larger portion of sales. And so like the MPDs maybe like, I think we're now seeing like, I imagine this having a pretty long tail on HBO Max and being like overall DC considering it a success long term. But I think, it's just starting to show that like maybe the box office is going to end up tapering off a little bit in terms of relevancy.
Yeah, for sure.
This is tricky too, because they're competing with things like Black Widow, which did well both in theaters and with it sounded like Disney Plus money like kind of raked in.
That's what ScarJo's saying, at least. It's
like June and July seemed to kind of like everyone was optimistic that movies were coming back and they could make money in theaters again with, Quiet Place 2 and Fast and the Furious 9.
Yeah.
They made some good money. But at least, with on the Disney plan, people are kind of like, should I spend $30 and just in the comfort of my home? Or should I go to the theater, playing off the convenience and the, risk of more Delta stuff. But it feels like Delta's more of a factor now.
Yeah.
There's talk about like, okay, it's a hard R, like, some teens can't see it. And then there's the average fan too. It's like, wait, is this a re-release of the other Suicide Squad movie? There's some confusion there,
and you can't even really explain it. Like, it's not really a sequel, but kind of just pretend that other one didn't matter. But
I mean, like Rick Flag and Harley have like this rapport that implies that movie happened, right? And Captain Boomerang is in it. Like there's that connection there. But I feel like there are so many mitigating circumstances around the failure of this movie that I don't think it'll be a thing where, well, I guess we're not making another Suicide Squad movie. I could totally see them just saying like, I think we get another chance at this because of how much happened. But also it could just be like the money people just like don't care about all that stuff and said like, hey, the numbers were low, so we're not making another one.
Could be.
All that WB would say is that it's the second most viewed film over an opening weekend on HBO Max since, the day and date release thing they started doing.
Second so that means,
I don't know what the first. Do you think it's
Mortal Kombat?
Was it Godzilla Kong?
Maybe Godzilla.
I don't know.
What are some of the other?
Have they not released stats for that? Because that seems like a thing they could use to say like, hey, look how many people watch HBO Max. You should just subscribe to HBO Max. You're getting movies for free.
Yeah,
I think so. And they didn't release how many new subscribers they got, possibly for people like, I'll just watch Suicide Squad here. It's fine. I'll sign up.
Right.
They didn't go anything as far as Variety reported. They didn't go anything deeper than second most streamed opening weekend.
I think the big test. Oh, so no one knows what number one is, but apparently, according to Uproxx, it's believed to be Mortal Kombat. Oof. Oh, really?
That seemed to be a pretty big talk on Twitter when it came out.
I guess that's true. Yeah. But I think the big test will be Shang-Chi, not Shang-Chi, apparently Shang-Chi is how it's pronounced, releasing in early September. Yeah, because that's not going to be on the Disney Premium thing. It's not going to be an option there. So that'll be the ultimate test for how theaters are doing once you force people to go to theaters to see a new Marvel movie.
Yeah, which is going to be weird because it doesn't look like Delta's going to get any better. So it feels like they're making that move at the wrong time. And I think that could lead to bad things.
Yeah.
It's close enough. Well, I guess it's early September though. There's still a chance that they could do a last minute let's pull out. But I think everyone behind that movie is going to be like closely watching to see if it can make money.
Yeah.
And also, of course, Delta cases. But if that doesn't quite hit it, I feel like every other giant, Top Gun, Dune, I feel like stuff is just going to get pushed right out of there. If it comes back with, another 20-something million take,
that's going to be rough.
I don't see how big other big movies from other studios still come out this year.
Yeah. And I guess, even before that, I guess Free Guy is coming out soon. I might actually have got free tickets for that on Wednesday. I don't know. I might be going to see it. But apparently this Free Guy and Suicide Squad can remember the same thing where Rotten Tomatoes, they are startlingly high. I think like Suicide Squad's mid-90s on Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah, I checked before this and it's like 91, but it was like as high as maybe 96.
Yeah, like it was topping Dark Knight for a while there. It was like, oh my gosh, I guess, if it's just thumbs up, thumbs down on Rotten Tomatoes, this is absolutely a thumbs up. So who's not going to appreciate the absurdity of this movie?
Yeah, I think I wonder if Matrix isn't going to be the big one of that this is going to be the marker of does a major theater movie like that, and it's obviously still part of HBO's plan to release that stuff, but how well does that do? Feels like to me like the bigger market.
Right, for Warner Brothers, it's next biggie, I'd imagine. But hey, Suicide Squad, anything else we didn't hit on, fellas?
Just I guess to wrap up the business side, with Scarlett Johansson suing Disney about Black Widow, which even though it was home streaming, that was still extra paid money versus HBO Max, where it's kind of even more nebulous. I guess that'll decide, I think, a lot of movies coming out as well, depending on how that goes. But it could take a long time for them to reach any kind of settlement. But if more actors who are promised a cut of the box office are like, "Hey, this totally sucks," right. I was expecting this movie to make way more, and if we held it and just put it in theaters or something, my cut would be millions of dollars more. So I can see the legality of a lot of these releases being called into question a lot as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun times.
I also do want to give a quick shout out to Daniela Melchior, who plays Ratcatcher 2. I think she does a really good job. And she, I guess, is a Portuguese actress who's mostly done local roles up until in Portuguese movies. And she was the Portuguese voice for Spider-Gwen in Spider-Verse.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was looking her up a little bit, be like, what was she in? Because she just nailed it. Yeah, to this entire movie.
Yeah, so I like that, a lot of these movies are manned by okay, who's the biggest talent we can get in this movie? So I do like Gunn at least finding someone new to prop up and say you're a star now because of the superhero movie machine, right? So,
right.
And she does a killer job. I think she's one of the best parts of the movie.
And they had that poignant cameo with her dad, Ratcatcher 1, Taika Waititi.
Yeah. Who's everywhere
which
now.
Is one of the few heartfelt moments of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That was nice. All right. Well, that is it for Max Spoilers on the Suicide Squad. Let us know what you thought about the movie in the comments below. Your favorite joke. I'm always curious about your favorite joke. But people, Brian, are asking us to do a Max Spoilers for What If. But I think we should probably wait for all those to be out so we can run through the whole thing, right?
Yeah, because then you can which was your favorite What If, and
all those fun scenarios. Yeah, absolutely. So you can look forward to that, and we'll be back for even more Max Spoilers in the future. But again, you can head over to patreon.com/minmax to compete in Trivia Tower coming up this Monday, August 16th. It'll be a grand time, and we'd love to see you jump in and win some prizes. All right, Suriel, do you want to do the big sign off?
All right. Be good, have fun. Let's go.
Content like this exists because of you. Thank you so much for subscribing on YouTube, sharing it with a friend, and especially for supporting MinMax on Patreon. Supporters at any tier on Patreon unlock access to MinMax's Discord, the friendliest place on the internet, where you can compete in game trivia every month to win prizes with our show Trivia Tower. Thanks so much for watching and sharing our stuff, everybody.